It is November the 27th, 2016, and I'm with Lyman. And Lyman's going to share with us about family history today, and we're in
We're headed to Northcutts Cove.
we're headed to Northcutts Cove. So I'm going to turn it over to Lyman. I'm walking over to the well. I'm going to get a cup full of this water and get a taste for it. See, and Lyman says no one's died yet, so hopefully after I drink a little bit, this won't be my my first and last video of this.
Well, now, no one's come back to complain, so.
Yeah, nobody's. So here it goes. Yeah, nobody's gonna. That's fresh water.
That's pure.
That's
yeah.
good. Here, try some.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Better than any bottled water you can buy a long shot. I don't think they've ever had it analyzed or anything, not that I know of. But it's been here. I know that it was a galvanized pipe and it rusted, and they ran this PVC pipe. But I know that in our family, is Grandpa was telling me about it, and Grandpa was born in about 1860, somewhere around there, and he's been using it ever since he was a kid, so it's been here a long time, at least 150 years. So don't really know where this came from. Could have been a moonshine still at one time, I don't know. So, but it reminds me, one of our Grandpa Tipton's dad, did have a still right down the hill here, but it was a government sanctioned still. He made peach brandy and apple brandy, but he had stamps, tax stamps that he had to put on each bottle that he made. So we come from a long line of alcoholics, I guess. But they did quite well at it. Here we have a place called Ader Spring. This is where a lot of people in this area used to get their water. It's never gone dry. It comes from off the hill way up there. Just a delicious water. And right on the other side of the road there is, right over here is a rock quarry that Grandpa Tipton used to own. We used to come down there as Boy Scouts. The only place I know that had about every kind of snake there was in it. But this whole area here, starting right up there, back when Andrew Johnson was governor of Tennessee, he gave 5,000 acres to one of our Grandpa Tipton. Grandpa, I called him Grandpa, he was my great-grandfather. He lived with us. Died when he was 97. But his grandfather was one of the best fiddle players in Tennessee, and back when Johnson was running for governor, Grandpa Tipton fiddled all the way to Nashville to support him. He was in the back of a wagon, he and some folks went. And of course, Johnson won the governorship, and I guess to pay him off or whatever, to pay Grandpa, he gave Grandpa 5,000 acres here. This is how we own, or did own, a lot of the Northcutts Cove down here. And but we're headed down to the Mormon Church, which well, we'll see when we get there. It's a typical church in the valley. It was built in 1904, dedicated in, I believe, 1909. Grandpa Tipton, that was Mammy's dad, gave the land for it. Grandpa Smart, which was Pappy's dad, gave most of the material for it. and Pappy's brothers. I think he had 6 brothers. They all built the church with the help from folks around down there. So when it got built, it was debt free. Still exists. It's supposed to be the oldest standing Mormon church in the southern United States. But it's eventually going to have major work done on it. But the church has given up ownership to it, so it has to be taken care of by us folks locally. So aunts and uncles and my cousins, you know, I was the baby of the family, and I had many people to influence me for good or bad. Whatever I am, I owe to them all. So, but it's just I used to come down here a lot after Pappy died. I always brought Mammy down here once a month. She wanted to visit the graveyard we're going to go to. But anyway, which will be our next stop, I guess. We're within about 3 miles of the church, and it's, like I said, it's your typical church in the valley. Beautiful, beautiful church. So,
well, Lyman and I, we've been told that that we resemble one another, which we do very much so. I at least my opinion is, and not only that, but as Lyman shared about family history and his experience with family members and being in the family raising him, I share that commonality in my life as well, being raised by several different family members, and I give tribute to who I am today based on my teachers in life. So some family and some extended family. I give credit where credit's due. Well, Lyman, thank you for sharing thus far. And Lyman's going to share with us about this. Take it away, Lyman.
Okay. The church was commissioned in 1909, but it actually was finished in 1904. It just took that long to get mission presidents and stuff down here to go through blessing it. Here is a picture here. And that's Pappy right there. That's what we call Pappy, my grandfather.
Will you point to him again, Lyman?
Yeah, right. That's Pappy right there. That's Grandpa Tipton. He's the one that gave the land for this. That's Grandpa Smart. That's Pappy's dad. It's him and his son. He gave the material for it. And see, that's Uncle Henry. That's Pappy's brothers there, and Pappy. And there was a few others that them and some in the community built the church. So when the church was finished, there wasn't a dime owed on it. Yeah, it was Charles Callis is the one that came and blessed it. He was he was from Salt Lake City. He at one time was a mission president, but I don't know if he was one of the 12 at the time. I can't remember. That part's vague to me. But they had a like I said here, at one time in October 1909, there was a 3-day debate held here between Brother Callis and a Church of Christ minister. They said, as to who won, you never know. Nobody wins when you argue religion. But this is where anyone around went to church that was a Mormon for many years. Then they built one that showed Charles up in Altamont that everyone worshipped after that. This one was used mainly for special occasions. Always had Easter service here. A lot of people were married in here. The missionaries would hold conferences here. But the only thing it's used for now is pretty much the Easter sunrise services or something special that they'll get together for the missionaries. Most missionaries have been here to see it that are in the southeastern areas. And there's something that if you're a member of the family, you always have to do at least one time when you come here. door is open. And it is. It's not locked. They don't have a lock on it. This is the inside of the church. But what you have to do is let me hold it here a minute. You have to ring the bell. Go ahead. Like everyone is Pappy and Mammy's grandchildren and children.
If that bell could speak.
Absolutely. That's the original.
So that is the original bell.
That's the original bell.
Wow.
Yeah, most stuff in the church is original, or most of the church, but what's not is the electricity. The lamps are not, somebody stole all the lamps because they never locked the church. The pews are all original. I don't know, the dais I don't think is, as you can see from up above, it's starting to rot. At some point in time, I fear that it will be gone. But it has its old wood stove in it that you can heat in the wintertime.
And have you attended sermon here, Lyman?
Oh yeah. I mean, we would come to, like I said, Easter service, Easter sunrise service. We would have a bunch of funerals in here, as the graves outside would testify to. I was trying to remember, we'd have conference down here occasionally, and it's something to have all the tables outside spread with food and stuff, and as long as it didn't rain, we were okay. I don't know if you can get a shot at the window here. I'm going to show you. All of the property back through there, this is Mandy's. You can see how this butted up to this. This was just off of the property that she had. And I'll show you more outside of what she had.
So Lyman has sat in these pews with Pappy and Mammy and brothers and sisters and multiple family members.
Never Pappy.
Never Pappy.
Pappy would not go to church.
Pappy would not go to church.
Right. He built it, but he wouldn't go to it. He said if he were to join a church, it would be the Mormon church because of your Mammy's influence and Grandpa's influence, but never knew a Pappy to attend it. I remember Uncle Isaac Ross, not Uncle, everybody called him that. He's not my uncle, he was our neighbor. I was with Pappy one Sunday morning, helping him down in the garden. Mr. Isaac walked by and said, "Beecher," said, "you should be in the church," said, "the Lord wanted you to rest on this day." And Pappy told Mr. Isaac, said, "Mr. Isaac," said, "the Lord was done on the seventh day." He says, "I'm nowhere near being done." So Mr. Isaac shut up and went on. But yeah, Pappy was not, he worked 7 days a week. From the time the sun come up till the time it went down. Always wringing wet with sweat. He just was a man, that's what he grew up doing, was the work. He was his mother's worker. When he married Mammy, his mother said, "Well, there goes my lunch earner." He was the one that made the money for him. So she really hated to lose him. I don't know much about his other brothers except for Uncle Tommy, and we loved him to death. But never were around many of them. They pretty much, those that were born down here stayed down here. Not many of them moved out.
Well, that makes Nanny an exception.
Yeah, they were exceptions. I don't know why they moved out from here, but it was in 1928 that the house that I was born in or lived in. I was born in Palmer at the clinic, but that's where my mother lived, and I was raised at. He built that in 1928. Built it by himself. But then Uncle Tommy came up and helped him finish it. Uncle Tommy, which was his brother, was an extraordinary carpenter. Oh, he could make beautiful stuff out of cedar. He was a cabinet maker and a carpenter. So. But Pappy, tell you this is, I can think of stuff. Pappy and his brothers, and of course, down here in the Cove, there wasn't a whole lot to do. But on Saturday nights, early on in their lives, they would have square dances. And Pappy could play the fiddle, but he would be the caller. Uncle Alf, one of Pappy's brothers, they said was one of the best banjo players around. Uncle Tommy played the fiddle. Somebody else played the guitar. And they would have these square dances on Saturday nights. Friday nights was reserved for the Grand Ole Opry. They'd pull the battery out of the car and put it up to this radio and listen to the Grand Ole Opry on Friday nights. So, everybody would come around because very few cars back then. Pappy had one, but he couldn't drive. Mama was the one who had to drive him around. Don't know why. Mama said he could drive, but he just wouldn't. And so he told everybody he couldn't. So that's all I know about the fun life down here.
We're gonna walk outside and we'll learn more. There's the bell. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. And here's a plaque on the church. It says Northcutts Cove Chapel, built 1909, has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places by the United States Department of the Interior.
Now this property over to the left, that was one of Mammy's sisters. That was their part of the property that Grandpa had. Starting about where these logs are, Mammy had that hill going that way, but she had all of this over here. Mammy got more property than the others for whatever reason. I don't know.
Is there speculation to say why she may have gotten more land than the others?
No, probably one of the reasons is from 1945 until he died, Grandpa lived with Mammy. I mean, she took care of him all those years. No one else was willing to. So she just, I know it's probably a couple hundred acres here, all told, that she got. Her relatives, her aunts and whatever, their property had gone to their kids and stuff. So there's 4 of them that I know where their property. Mammy and three sisters got that.
So some of the property is in the family.
No, that's after Mammy died. Knox sold it as quick as he could. I wish he hadn't, but he did. And I would like to have had this. They got a deal on it. They're 100 and something acres for $20,000, and that was a really good price. But I'd like to have had it because it was Mammy's. Like I said, Mammy and Pappy raised me along with my mother, so. Knox, he was the executor of their will, and he got tired of fooling with it. I think he lived in Chattanooga, and it was hard to take care of this, which was about 70 miles from where he lived. Actually, at that time he moved to Ooltewah, so it was about 90 miles.
So now this is around the church. We're approaching the burial site.
All right. First person buried here is Grandma Nunley.
Okay.
This property went from her to Mammy, actually. She at one time did have a big iron fence around her grave here, but it was removed. I think Phil had that removed. it was hard to mow around, but it was very distinctive in that was a beautiful, beautiful iron fence. To the left here is the person who actually gave this. That's Grandpa Tipton. Grandpa came to live with us in 1945, so I didn't know he lived with us about 14 years, between 14 and 15 years. And that's his wife, Belle Tipton. Belle was Nunley. That's how the property had come to Grandpa. He's actually, I think I said before, he's actually my great-grandfather, but since we called my grandfather and grandmother Mammy and Pappy, then my great-grandfather became Grandpa.
And I didn't mention this earlier, but this is, I may have, this is actually absolutely gorgeous out here in the foothills. It's tucked in at the base of it. It's, as you can see around.
Now we start to run into some that were buried here since I was. There's some been buried. A lot's been buried since I've been gone. And I left Grundy in 1963. I went to BYU for a couple of years. Then I went in the Navy to Vietnam. Fought that fight. Let's go ahead and let you see a cemetery now out behind the church. I'll introduce you to the graves as the ones that I know who they are or how they are interrelated to our family. The first one, of course, is Margaret. We have her here, and we have her ashes on the upper side of her marker. We put it in a very beautiful box that has her ashes in it, plus on the side it has flower seeds. It's supposed to come up every year. It's like wildfire. This is, we called him Gene Rankin. His name was Harley Eugene. He was one of the grandchildren. I mean, yeah, one of the grandchildren, as I am and as Margaret was. That's how we identified ourselves from the children. We just called ourselves the grandchildren. He had a brother and a sister. His brother's name, we called him Junior Rankin. His name, and his sister is Juanita. Juanita still lives in California. I believe it's Norwalk that she lives in. This here's the marker of Chris Pearson, Margaret's son. And then here is Margaret's mother. This is Geneva White. She was the second oldest child of Mammy and Pappy. They started out having 3 girls, and Geneva was the second oldest. Here's a marker for Hoyt, which is Margaret's brother. He lived in California and died there. And this here is a marker for Beecher Eugene Watts. That was Hoyt's brother, younger brother, that died.
So did Nanny have this made for her brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she had those 2 made. Of course, the others were. They're so far as I know, they're the only 2 markers that are in the graveyard.
Okay.
Raymond Hobbs, that is a son of Mammy's sister that lived up on the hill over here. That was one of Grandpa's 4 daughters. This was my mother's first husband. His name was Pell Converse. I got to clean that off sometime.
And how do you say his name, Lyman?
Pell Converse.
Pale Converse, okay.
His name was Pelham, but she called him Pell. I never, of course, obviously didn't meet him. He was born in Georgia.
Yep.
And this is my mother. She married, my My dad was attorney, so she married him. She died in 2003. This grave is Mary Stem. Mary was the daughter of Avis, my Aunt Avis. Mary's brother Tommy lives in the house up by the house I was raised in. The Dotson, this is children of Mary. This here is, we called her Mama. My Uncle Knox's mother-in-law. Wonderful, wonderful lady. But we just called her Mama. Her name was, everybody called her Miss Langston, but didn't call her Mama. Her name was Bessie. Dotson, this is Brian. She's Mary Stem's. Actually, she would be Mary Meeks, but Stem was her married name. That's Brian's grave. He was killed. A truck ran into him. A big, I guess, hauling rock truck and killed him. Sister Carol, she was a missionary. Came back here. She had asked when she left on her mission if she could come back and be buried here. Of course she could. She could have done anything she wanted to. What a lady she was. This is Jean Rankin's daughter. She died when she was about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. She had a hole in her heart. About killed him. Cindy, Lucindy. Okay, Cindy was her name.
Lyman, why would they have Angel Unaware
Just
in that stone?
people tend to put whatever.
I see.
On Mama's, I put her family was her life, and it was. She was all about family. Elmer Hobbs, I guess that goes to that stone there. He was Aunt Dess's son. That was Mammy's sister, Aunt Dess. This is Aura. This is Mammy and Pappy's first child. She was the mother of Jean and Junior and Juanita. Oh, William Taft Smart. He died 2 days after he was born. Now here is Juanita Ruth Smart. This was the last child that Mammy and Pappy had. She died when she was 2 or 3 years old. It took him over a day to get her out of Pappy's arms. She died in his arms. She was his baby. He was crazy about it. Don't remember what she died from now. This grave here is Eva. He was the youngest of Mammy and Pappy's children. Now this is your Aunt Avis.
Avis.
Let's get on the other side of this one. This is Mammy and Pappy.
Aunt Avis made some of the best chocolate gravy.
Oh, and I never had eaten any of it. Pappy died in '61 and Mammy in 1980. She was 95. Pappy died when I was out in California. He had me sent out to see Hoyt. I didn't know he was dying. He had me to go out so I wouldn't be here when he died, because he and I were extremely close when I was young. He worked all the time at the house, plus whatever else work he did. He'd put me in the wheelbarrow, and here we'd go with whatever he's doing. It was nothing for him to have a wheelbarrow completely full of rock to the top and pick me up and sit me on top of it. And here, heavy as it was, but I used to drive him around and stuff. we were both equally proud of each other. I'll tell you, he was the best man I ever knew, everybody ever hoped to know. Now this Hobbs here, this is a row of Hobbs here. This is Aunt Dessie's grave. That was Mammy's sister that lives up on top of the hill over here. Like I said, knew Aunt Dess and I knew Lawrence. There's a story there about Elmer Lawrence. His brother was a little bit off and killed him. Got drunk one night and just killed him. So last I knew of his brother, he was up in Cookville in a halfway house because he just mentally there was a problem there.
I forgot to mention that, or we mentioned it briefly. Nanny being a trailblazer, being a redhead, that's appropriate. She what was it? She left the mountain, and not many people were leaving the mountain at that time, from what I understand.
Yeah, no, it was. And the thing about up here is, the only job there was for people up here back then was in the coal mines, or to be a teacher, and that was it. Pappy worked in the coal mines in Palmer for about a year, and Mammy said no more. She said she hadn't slept in a year. She couldn't sleep when he was up there working. She knew it was going to cave in. So he goes and becomes a janitor at one of the schools. Kept that for a long time. I used to go up there with him. Always hoping I'd find the ice cream box unlocked, but it was always locked. I think that's all. The other ones that are buried here, I don't know. They are related, but they're related going through a different side of the family than Mammy and Pappy. But they are related. Well, I say they're probably related some way with Pappy or with Grandpa, but I don't know. There's a couple that I have no earthly idea who they are. I don't know. I think one of them, Knox, let me buried here. May have been Knox's friends. There's somewhere more. There's two more missionaries buried here, but I don't know. I don't remember where they are. It's just. Yeah, it's really true. The older you get, the less you know, or the less you remember. I'm not sure which it is. I know less and remember less. Yeah.
Well, you know quite a bit from what you shared. It's much appreciated.
I will go back. I want to show you down here Mammy's old home. Show you the creek down there. We used to go barefooted in when I was a kid hunting duck eggs. Ducks would lay eggs down in the creek, and those things would last forever because that water is ice cold. They got their water from a spring down there. And up at the head of the creek, they had what was called a blue hole. You could throw a rock in it, and you could sit and listen for 2 minutes to that rock falling down. It's next to the Church of Christ. The Church of Christ uses it now, and they filled it up because they were afraid kids would fall in it. Which I'm glad they did. That was dangerous, but a lot of history on that creek.
All right, we're heading over to the creek.
Looking to catch us guineas to take up to Grundy. Guineas are fun to have. They're the best watchdog in the world. They'll scream at night, wake you up out of a deep sleep if someone comes around. But you usually can't keep them around long. They'll eventually fly away. And these every time we got them, they would. We got a neighbor up in Cookville that just raised 21 of them. He opened the door, and now there's only 3 left. They fly away. Which are fun to have.
Well, Lyman and I, we've hit the mother lode on stone and brick. So Lyman's gonna hold on to a few of the bricks for when cousin Chris comes visits. Maybe all of us get together and share the history.
Yeah, that's like I said. I wish you could have seen it in its glory days. One thing I did do down here, where the kitchen was when I was a kid, we would come down, you know, at least once a month. But first place I headed was to the kitchen. A lot of the old timers back then, whatever food they had, they would keep it on the table and they would pull the tablecloth over on the top of it and leave it there. So I'd go in there and pull that tablecloth back, and I'd help myself to whatever, you know. And my mother would get on to me about that, but the others that were here said, no, let them go. But that was the way they did it back then. They cooked something like country ham. Of course, it'd last forever. And unless I got there, then I'd eat every bit.
That sounds delicious. That sounds really good.
That was the way to go.
And Lyman, so around over through the brush there's a creek, and is that where Danny was baptized?
No, it's going up here across the road.
I see.
We'll run by there right quick.
That's where we're heading. That's where we're heading to next. Okay.
Converted to the Mormon church. They called this back then. They called it the Campbellites Church, because Campbell's the one that founded the Church of Christ. Then the story about that with Grandpa was he was an avid member of the church. Missionaries came here one day. Back then, the missionaries they didn't have any money to buy food with or anything. They had to depend on people along the way giving them food. And they came to Grandpa's door one day and asked if they could visit with them. It had been raining out, and Grandpa told them no, and they wiped their feet and left. And somewhere in the Bible there is something about that, about wiping your feet. I don't remember what it was, but Grandpa said, I knew right then that I'd made a mistake. So he told Grandma, go after them. And she said, John, she says, I'm not doing it. You're the one that turned them away. So he went after them, and they started taking the lessons and whatever and converted. And it was because of that church was built up there. Well, let me go over here and show you.
And they say the rest is history.
This water is extremely low. I've never seen it this low before. But, right in here is where Grandpa had his government still at. Because this water was as fresh as it could be, and up at the very head there. Oh, the Church of Christ, they use it a lot, so they filled it in with rock, and they needed to. It's extremely deep. It goes way back under that rocky cliff there. But the water came out, and it was ice cold, and it was delicious to drink. But it's, I don't know, all of us grandkids played in this a lot when we were young. Mama and Mammy and Pappy come down to visit, we'd come down to play. We would always play in this stream. You had to have tough feet because it would freeze your feet off even in the middle of July. It was ice cold. We'd find duck eggs in it, no telling how old they were, and we'd take them home and eat them. There were minnows, but that was all. On down this stream here, there is another one of Mammy's sisters has property down there, and her house is up on the hill like. To get her water from down in this creek, which is down there, it gets deeper. She had what squirrel was that? She had a cable with a bucket on it, and she would they would follow a track down and go down over the hill and down to where they had dug it out, and it would dip the water, and you'd keep winding it up, and it would bring it right back up, and that's how they got to the water. So when I'd go there, I'd sit out there and draw water. They called it all day long. just fun to do. A lot of the old stuff from back then. But now I don't remember those holes being up there in that cliff. I don't know if they've done something or something's.
So is this where Nanny was baptized?
It would have been right up in there if she was baptized down here. Now, I don't know. It would either had to have been here or up in Altamont. There's a creek up there.
I heard it was in November, and so in November it would have been freezing cold.
Absolutely.
She was baptized by ice.
Yeah, that, man. Yeah, back then, they didn't have baptismal fonts back then. You went to a creek. I've got my wife, the copy she made of the movies I had with the CD. I've got one on there of, I don't know who it was, but I had baptized several in that creek at Altamont. And even in the middle of summer, you freeze to death in that water. But you just have to find one that's deep enough. And a lot of places they would dig out to that.